Hey folks, I'm just streaming to YouTube, just FYI. I'll put the link and we'll just hang out and as folks join. Hey folks, just streaming to YouTube, just FYI.
Hello.
Hello. Just we still have a minute, but
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Okay, it is 5 o'clock. I see one other board member on. I'll give it like one more minute.
okay. I do know Mr. Tatum will be joining. You mentioned that earlier, and I'll text the others.
Okay, I see that board member Tatum has joined. So we're gonna get started. Can I start now?
Yes, we're
Okay.
streaming in live.
Okay, great. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Francoise Darastel Ledger, and I'm Vice Chair for the Hartford Board of Education, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the Teaching and Learning Committee meeting for Hartford Public Schools. And today is October 29th, 2025. And we have some items on the agenda.
Let me screen share.
Thank you. And our first item on the agenda is the contract approval for 2-for-1 Sports and Monica Quinones. I will pass it on to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I will be starting off with presenting the 2-for-1 Sports, and I will give a little background. And if there's any questions In addition to that, we have some principals that are able to share experience, and we also have invited Mr. Let's see, Steve Boyle. Yes, he is here. Just looking for him in case there's any more information that's needed. So 2-for-1 Sports has been providing this opportunity for a couple of years here at Hartford Public Schools. And their goal is really to develop and deliver a sustainable physical literacy development program for children, families, and communities. And it focuses on building culture, ability, relationship, and enjoyment. And how they do it is they blend the sports, physical activities, nutrition awareness, practical skills of social and emotional learning. And that leaves children with the confidence, and motivation to be active for life. They aim for overall wellness, equity, and inclusion. And a couple of their services that they offer are summer camps, before and after school programs, weekend camps and clinics, coach training, physical literacy curriculum implementation, and sport-specific program tied to long-term athlete development model, program evaluation, and consulting as well. So that is the overall program and what they offer. But we do have some schools that have been using 2-for-1 Sports these past couple of years. So I could pass it over to Principal Jacobson, who could start off. And there's also Principal Thompson, who is also on the call, who may add to the impact that the school has had using 2-for-1 Sports.
Thank you, Director Quinones. So Gus Jacobson, principal of Noah Webster. I think if you want long-term impact, I just left the city's middle school cross-country race. And we had 14 runners participate. Of those, half of them have participated in 2-for-1 Sports at some level prior, either as part of being in the morning program, fencing. A couple of them are now what are called PLPs. So those are middle school students supporting other students. So just that alone, it gets our kids moving and grooving. I think for us, it's the breadth of the program in terms of some morning programming for our students run by 2 of our teachers, one of whom is also our cross-country coach. So that gets 4 days a week, younger grades particularly, and with the fencing. But we've also really appreciated the girls' leadership program. If you are familiar at all with middle schoolers, in particular middle school girls, any opportunity to bring them together to work on their leadership and their skills as young women is always appreciated. I've included in the slides, there's some data, but just if you look at I would say that the biggest indicator for us is over the last 3 years where our chronic absentee rate has gone, which was a high of 29% in 22-23. And that was the first year, no, the year before we started working with 2-for-1. And this year we're literally living, I looked at it today, we're up to 12%, but we're just at a number that's less than half. So again, creating opportunities for students to be at the school, to engage with activities at the school. For us, it's become part of what we do here. It's part of families are excited about it. Our students are excited about it. Our teachers are excited about running the program and the opportunities it provides, not only to participate in sports, but then to learn about life through sport, which is just as important in that SEL connection. So that social emotional learning that's so important for our students. And we've just, it's part of who we are. And we're excited to continue that work.
We also have the other principal.
Principal Thompson, if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I would just echo the positive impact that 2-for-1 has had on our school. We've been working with them for the last 3 years and utilizing these extracurricular grants, which has been really supportive. We have a lot of families that are asking for sports programs for the elementary age, and that was a big gap for us. So 2-for-1 is really about helping. It stands for life is too short for just one sport. So helping kids experience lots of different sports that they wouldn't traditionally see maybe regularly played. So basketball and soccer are incredibly popular, but they're also learning how to play floor hockey or lacrosse, and they're learning those different cooperative games together. It's directly aligned with all our social emotional learning programs too. So the skills students are learning in the second step program in the classroom, they're also applying and learning again from other staff, as well as Webster. Our teachers that run the program are here at our school, so they have regular connections with the kids. And it also gives another leadership opportunity with the PLPs, which is really great. And then our middle school girls leadership program, again, just giving another opportunity for students to connect with one another outside the school day has been great. And it's just rounded out more of our programming. Our chronic absenteeism rate is there, and our current rate certainly have decreased from years past. I think the larger piece too is students who specifically participate in these programs have a decrease in chronic absenteeism and also the behavioral referrals. So that's really important for us. They're utilizing their strategies and also having additional positive peer relationships outside of just their classroom too.
Thank you so much. And for public consumption, can you just say what school you're a principal at?
Sure. Environmental Sciences Magnet School at Mary Hooker.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Okay, and I'm going to check. I personally am very excited about 2-for-1 Sports. I've received nothing but great feedback, rave reviews. I still have yet to get into Know Webster to try the fencing out, if I'm still welcome.
Always.
Thank you.
There is no sharp objects, just so nobody knows.
Okay.
They're not using metal fences, just epes or whatever you want to pick for that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I'm going to I see Board Member Walker's hand is up. So Board Member Walker, if you have a question, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. And thanks for the presentation, Principal Jacobson and Thompson. What I would like to see is more target data. I think Principal Thompson, you talked about it, like looking specifically at the students who participate in the program, keeping some track of who they are, and then show is it absenteeism or behavior or academic. Somehow, I think the presentation has presented, well, one, I haven't seen it until right now. So in some ways, I seeing the presentation may have given me some chance to dig through this, but targeted information would be really, really helpful, because we have so many programs. Now I'm speaking for just a second. The reason I'm asking for that is I'm often challenged as to whether each program measures up and achieves what it's supposed, the value that it's purporting. I think this program does, and so I'm just asking you, provide that data, because it makes it much easier for me to say yes to this and to defend it by saying, here's the actual data that says, hey, these guys are doing a great job. And so I'm asking, beyond this moment, if you can gather that data and share it with us even beyond this moment, so we can kind of have that to reference if it's not immediately here. I see the aggregate data, and so that feels good too. Is that a possibility? I guess do you collect data?
If I might,
do you want to share the data Julie shared with us?
Yeah. So, for the purposes of this particular call, we're funded in different ways to be in different schools. So last year, I believe we were in 9 Hartford public schools doing similar program. I would say one differentiator for us that really anecdotally I can say is, because we do a lot of before school programming, especially in the elementary schools, is that when kids in the elementary level if they love the program, they're going to show for the program, and then they stay, right? I was a high school guidance counselor for a lot of years. You might get kids that show up at noon for practice after school, or if they come in for something they like, they might bolt. Once we get the kids there, it's a big deal. Generally, I can tell you of the schools we were at last year, the data that we had for 2-for-1 participants was 7% compared to 20% average. So the participants in our programs, and I think the number was around 240 kids or so. I'd have to get the hard data, and I apologize, I don't have the exact numbers. Was 7% chronic absenteeism versus the 20%, and then 3+ discipline referrals, we had 5% versus 12 to 15%. And that, we could get you all that data, Mr. Walker, but I just wanted to sort of share that with you. It's at least somewhat anecdotally, and those are the hard numbers that I have in front of me.
No, I appreciate that. And yeah, I'm going, actually to get that together and saying that, kind of tinkering with the presentation to say, in the sense of let's have that data in here that, and the reason it's important too is, well, I congratulate what Principal Jacobs has been shown in terms of his drop in absenteeism, the absenteeism. Many programs that we fund who also claim benefits and absenteeism, which is why I'm inviting each program to, hey, show us your hard data, so you at least get credit for the contribution you made to it. Yeah. And we'll ask each other program to do the same thing. And so, Mr. Boyle, I appreciate your comments. And so, yes, feel free to send that data, post the meeting and whatnot through the principals or through Christina, so that we can just have that. And if it's for the schools last year, that's fine. If you're really trying to sell the value of your contribution. Right. So yes, thank
you.
Okay, thank you so much, Board Member Walker. And I see a coffee cup next to Board Member Tatum's name. I don't know what that means.
I did ask him. He's quickly on a phone call, but he is listening. But I don't believe he has any questions at this time.
Oh, okay.
So
all right.
Little clap timer.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so I think we are all set with that. Yeah. Thank you again for that presentation. That was very exciting, very informative. And we will now move on to our next agenda item. And that is,
and for the principal, sorry, for the first item, you're free to leave the meeting, because I know you guys have other stuff.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And this is Kennelly acceptance of funds. And we have Principal June Cahill and Vice Principal Mark Shulman.
Yes, we are here.
Great. The floor is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you for inviting us tonight to present our NEAG Foundation grant. It might look familiar to you because exactly 1 year ago, we presented on this same grant project, and we are thrilled to announce that we have been granted it for a second year. It is exactly the same and very similar to the program that we just saw. This is something that we had used our ESSER funding for. Our families asked and begged for extracurricular activities, and that's what we used that COVID relief funding for. When that funding went away, our families were very disappointed that there wasn't an opportunity to continue with these enrichment activities after school. So last summer, Mr. Shulman and I wrote a grant through the NEAG Foundation, and it was accepted. And we were able to run extracurriculars for the entire school year last year. We reapplied over this summer, and we just found out on Friday that we received the $98,000 again for this entire school year. So as soon as the check is available, we'll be able to begin programming for our Kennelly Bees. And if you move ahead, we can tell you some of the curriculars that we do. The nice thing about this grant is there's no contract involved. We use every bit of the money to pay our existing school staff, certified and non-certified, to offer enrichment activities for our students. We pay our security overtime and our custodial staff to stay so that we can open the building after school hours and invite the community in. We also, just like Board Member Walker said, have seen lots of wonderful data around this, especially around our school climate survey data. And if you look at those last 3 indicators, the survey questions around connectedness to school, connections to caring adults, and also the access to academic support are the top 3 indicators that we've received feedback on. This is a list of some of our enrichment programs that we were able to offer. We really love the diversity of our programming. We feel like there's something for everyone out there, whether it's dance or sporting events, but also we do offer academic enrichment as well for middle school. And our families love the opportunity for our students to stay for help with a certified teacher after school. It is filled to the rim. We also offer a Saturday academy in the morning, voluntary. Of course, it's nothing here is punitive. It's just offered to our families if they want a safe, quiet place for their students to get caught up in work. And that has been a highlight of our community as well. We did also see a drop in chronic absenteeism in our school climate data, as I previously reported. So we're really proud of those data points as well. Yeah, and to close us out, again, we're thrilled to be able to offer these enrichment activities for our students for a second year. I know the community is excited to hear the good word about whether we've received the grant or not. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, as well as Assistant Principal Schulman, if you'd like any more details on what we do with our grant money.
Can I just add something in real quick?
Please.
Students have been waiting, and they'll be so excited to hear about the grant. We offer programs all the way from kindergarten all the way up to 8th grade. One of the biggest programs, of course, is the Girl Scouts. We had over probably 60 students from the little ones, and going from the Daisies and now up to the Brownies, all the way up to the middle school. And in the middle school, having what's called our Busy Bees community service. So it's everything from after school kind of sports to creative to music, and of course, as Principal Cahill said, the academic piece of it, actually getting that one-on-one, one-on-two support for after school during the week, and then of course on Saturday morning. We were so happy last year that we actually was over 225 students, so almost a third of the school, or over a third of school, attended one of our programs. So again, the students are very excited for this year.
Thank you so much. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you so much for the presentation. I have 2 questions. The first question is, with regards to the community service, can you just give us a brief example of what that looks like? And
Yeah.
Also with regards to Saturday, how many students roughly show up for Saturday?
Yeah, absolutely. So the community service, our Busy Bees community service, started last year with school-wide. They did a survey of different types of programs of how they can help the climate in the school. So they did everything from plantings around the school to plants in our office, taking care of it, to other programs that they wanted to kind of see in the community to help out. The Saturday Growth Mindset Academy, we probably had between 50 and 60 on days that we all offered also 3 through 5 basketball. We had about 80 to 90 students here on a Saturday. So we offered, besides of course, for the 6th through 8th grade, we took that time for our grade 3 through 5 for some sports also.
Thank you so much. And do you do anything like, what does SEL look like? Do you incorporate that in your program as well?
Yeah, so one of the things that we do on our Saturday Growth Mindset Academy is we invite our school social workers to come in, and they do group social emotional learning groups with students. And again, everything is volunteer. At times like that, they may have between 10 and 15 students, and that may be once a month that the social workers come in. The social workers are also invited to as certified staff to run programs, enrichment program during the week to create that relationship and connective with students. So again, all certified staff is invited to create and run a enrichment program.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I am looking to see if there are any hands up. And oh, of course, Board Member Walker, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I had to fly it up. Hey, this is a great sounding program. I know that Kennelly has had after school programs, and this is great news about the program. The question that I have is around certified staff involvement. Is it strictly volunteer, or are they getting a little compensation for the time? How does that work in this program?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that's what we use the grant money for, is to pay them their contractual hourly rate, whether it's certified or non-certified, to run the program. So they come up with a proposal of something that they'd be interested in offering the students. And then as long as we have the interest, enough students, we look for 8 to 12 for each group, then we do offer that, and then they're compensated for their time.
Thanks for that that information. I would look forward to seeing some of your Saturday programming. I didn't know you had as well, so that sounds pretty exciting. You guys have a newsletter? You guys have a newsletter?
We did put together
school?
we put together an entire slide deck from last year with pictures and descriptions of everything. So I'd be happy to share that with the board as well. And one other thing, Board Member Walker, I would mention is, we're always in the interest of retaining staff members in our district. And so this is something that offers a little extra money for any of our staff, and that has really helped us with retention. We've been able to maintain our staffing at a very high level, and I have to think part of that is because they do have an opportunity, instead of taking on a second job, to earn a little extra income in their second home.
Yeah, I think that's worth reporting and at least surveying on that particular topic. I think that would be great to know if that's indeed the case. It may be worth replicating in other places, because I think more than just the compensation, it's meaningful engagement. It's engagement that actually helps them in the broader work that they're doing. So I can see that being a involved.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Board Member Walker. I don't see any more. Oh, do you have another question?
I think he's frozen. It's like a residual.
Yeah, wait, is he all set, or?
I
see
believe
his
so.
mic is still on.
I think he's frozen.
Oh, okay. Okay, so thank you so much. Okay, I think it's off. Okay, thank you so much. And once again for that presentation, very informative. And that, kudos to you for applying for that grant. Congratulations again on receiving it, and the great work that you're doing with it. So now we will, and if you're all set, feel free to continue to stay on, or you can be excused.
Thank you all.
You're welcome. Thank you as well. And now we are moving on to our next agenda item, me see. That will be contract approval. I don't want to say it
I think it's
wrong.
Daleen.
Daleen,
Flooring. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, flooring, SMSA slash UHSSE
Mhm.
gym floors. And that would be, okay, Daleen Flooring and Heidi Schmidt.
Yes, so I'm going to quickly jump in to say that unfortunately, Ms. Heidi Schmidt, who is our director of athletics, had an emergency to deal with at a school. But we do have both principals on, Mr. Sean Tammany from University High and Mr. Matt Gaffney from SMSA. I just want to quickly say, if she was here, she would say that she's continually working on finding grant funding to improve the school's conditions. If you recall, Hartford High recently renovated their gym and field house floors. Recently, the board approved that, I don't know, maybe 4 months ago. So now she found additional grant funding for SMSA and University High. And I will turn it over to, I think it's Principal Tammany, who's going to take the lead. And if so, I will.
Okay. Okay. I want to just go to the next slide. So these are two slightly different proposals in terms of what's being asked to be done. I think at University High School, and I'll speak to that, Matt, you can speak to it, is if you're not aware, we have a third of a gym, which creates a system of challenges for my PE teachers, my coaches, and things like that. Currently, the floor is damaged. It's I'm assuming from the building settling, and there's a split in the flooring, and the flooring that split extends all the way into the lane that the kids would use, or in terms of the basketball lane. So there's a safety concern there. Also, by working on this floor, it's going to allow me to offer more opportunity for more kids to participate in sports. So without having a full-size gym, I have to use Weaver, Annie Fisher, and other gyms for practices, which limits me in terms of being able to have, say, a freshman volleyball team or a freshman basketball team. So by repairing this floor, it'll allow the coaches to be able to use that facility or that room, that gym, to have practices, thereby again increase student participation. It's difficult to maintain a team when you're not having a freshman team. Well, you're also going to be adding pickleball lining to it. I don't know if anybody's a pickleballer in the here, but it's a new and upcoming sport. So it's something that we're going to be able to offer to our students. And Heidi doesn't know this here, so I'm going to say while she's not here, I'm going to be looking to add this across the district and starting some sort of a club team for students to participate in. If you want to add, Matt, if you want to speak on, I can do it for you if you want, but if you want to speak on SMSA, which is a little bit different in what they're going to be gaining.
SMSA, yeah. So for SMSA, our main gym floor is not really been touched since 2009 when the school was built. And over that time, due to a number of weather incidents, we have had some leaks. Fortunately, the roof has been fixed, but the damage to the floor has been done. In addition, the floor is fading quite a bit. All of the lines is kind of getting harder to see, as well as with the additional use that we've had in the gym due to Buckley being under construction. There's teams have come to us every single day after school since that process has started, as well as hosting a lot of things at Weaver, Magnet School events, and the District Expo. So we're just looking to fix a lot of those floors and make the surface more competitive for students so that they don't have any issues during the games. Again, like Sean said, we're going to be adding the pickleball lines as well. And then part of this is also just repairing and deep cleaning some of the areas in our field house, which haven't had an update in quite a while. So you can see kind of here the process required, similar to redoing any hardwood floor. It's going to be sanded right down to the base, coated with urethane. It's going to be painted the lines, and then with new coats on top to make it essentially a brand new surface for our students in district.
But by also doing that, right, at SMSA, that'll allow us to host tournaments there. It makes it an on-par facility across the state so that CIEC can do tournaments and playoffs and things like that there. So it adds to the revenue that SMSA can generate from that, or from Heidi can.
Yep.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Excited to see the outcomes of that. Let me see if I don't see any hands up. Oh, there's a hand. Board Member Tatum, the coffee cup is gone, so the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Darcel Ledger. And thank you for the presentation to both of you principals. Two questions. First to Mr. Tomini. What is the floor that currently is there now? Is it a wood floor or is it the?
No, it's I'm gonna say rubber, but it's not a wood floor. It's a rubber surface.
Yeah, and what you're replacing it with, it was described as the plastic FL overpour. That's like a similar substance.
Yeah, they're gonna go right over the current surface and be able to repair it, and you know it'll make it look like it's new. Some of the spots are worn out and stuff from use.
Got it. And then could someone just go back to the amounts? I think I missed the slide that had the amount breakdown. Okay, there we go. All right, I think that's all my questions for now. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And once again, feel free to stay on this, stay on the call, or you're excused. Once again, thank you for the information. And our next agenda item is the SPED update, special education, MTSS, and that will be Jennifer Hoffman, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Okay, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jen Hoffman, Assistant Superintendent for Special Education and Pupil Services, and joining me is Erin Doyle, Assistant Director for MTSS. Ms. Santiago, we can move to slide 3. Thank you. Tonight, Ms. Doyle and I will share some updates regarding MTSS, as well as the current landscape of special education for Hartford Public Schools, our continuum of services, and a look forward. So our current landscape of special education is broken down by current placements, meaning where students identified as eligible for special education services receive their services, as well as associated costs. This slide notes the number of special education students in each placement, including Hartford Public Schools and our in-district programs, as well as our in-district programs, which are a little bit different from an inclusion model. An amount for the district, an out of district program, which is by the state described as an approved private special education program, or an APSEP, magnet schools, and choice schools. The number that I listed on the slide is based on our March 2025 child count, which are listed on the slide. However, these numbers change on a daily basis and based on enrollment and changes that happen at a PPT. The purpose of sharing this information is to ensure that the board knows how and where students receive their special education services, and how, again, where our students attend, but also the costs associated. And just a reminder that it really does change on a daily basis. So that's a very high overview of the current landscape, but I'm going to shift gears so that Ms. Doyle can share an overview of the MTSS process and how that also then impacts our students in Hartford Public Schools.
Thank you. Good evening. Christina, if you can move to the next slide, please. So I'm going to start with just what is MTSS. MTSS stands for Multi-Tiered Systems of Support, and it is a general education initiative where we identify students across multiple domains who are in need of additional supports to achieve success in those areas. So those domains could include academics, behavior, social emotional learning, attendance. And this is all part of the 2004 revision to IDEA, which is the Americans with Disability Education Act, where the response to intervention process, which we call MTSS, was considered or was included as part of the referral process. So we want to see we want to provide students with supports and see if they are able to make gains utilizing those additional services. You could move to the next slide, please. So there are 3 tiers of support within an MTSS process. And again, these tiers are true, whether it's academics, behavior, social emotional learning, attendance, so on. At the very foundational level is tier 1 or universal instruction. That is our core curriculum, grade level aligned content. And it's available to all of our students, whether they are general education students, special education students, or a combination thereof, because all of our students are general education students first. And this includes differentiated instruction that is aligned to grade level content. And so what we're part of the goal is that those tier 1 supports are providing the multitude of students, the majority of them, success in the classroom. That yellow line, that vertical line right after tier 1, is a visual to show our benchmarking or universal screening assessments that we utilize in order to inform both our tier 1 and our intervention supports. And those intervention supports can live at tiers 2 and or 3. Tier 2 is targeted supports, which means that it's additional to tier 1. So they get their general education curriculum aligned to their grade level content, and then they might get additional intervention supports that target a specific area of need that we would utilize that benchmark assessment data or through our universal screening assessments to figure out which specific area that is in need of. And then those students receive those intervention supports and are progress monitored regularly to determine if they're making growth. And those supports are usually delivered in a small group by the classroom teacher. Then we have tier 3 or intensive supports, and that is in addition to tiers 1 and 2. So it's a much smaller group of students that would have access to tier 3 intervention supports. And again, it's highly targeted to a student need, progress monitored more frequently than the other 2 areas, because we really are keeping a very close eye on that student and how they're making progress or not. And we really want to see them delivered in a group of no more than 3 students, because we want to make sure that students have a lot of opportunities for practice and feedback and support from the teacher. And so sometimes we have to use additional assessments to really dive into and get very specific about what that area of need is, particularly if it's significantly off grade level. And as we're tracking students, we're determining if they're making growth, if they're going to be meeting grade level expectations. And in the event that it's decided that despite the interventions provided, that students are not making growth, then we might, the team might decide to make a referral for special education services, which are represented by those 2 red vertical lines. And that is where then there's a referral and there's a PPT, and then there is a discussion and additional evaluations might be warranted at that point. Next slide, please. So what do these interventions look like and how do they exist in our schools? So we have intervention time that's dedicated across all of our schools. In the elementary school, that could be literacy lab that's in all of our schedules. It could also include math reteaching that occurs prior to the start of the regular math lesson. In middle school, schools have dedicated intervention blocks where students are either scheduled into a block or there's one universal block and then students move depending upon their need. And again, math reteaching occurs during that point as well. And then in our high schools, we have courses that can be scheduled. One is called Reading Foundations, and that really is targeting English language arts. We also have transitions to algebra for students that are in 9th grade who need a little additional support prior or alongside their algebra class. So they might be scheduled into both transitions to algebra and algebra. And then of course we have the Student Support and Success Centers, which are our tier 2 intervention supports really to help students with recovering credit. Resource-wise and material-wise, we really spent a lot of time trying to align the resources that we are able to provide so that we have consistency across all schools and that our resources are evidence-based and aligned to our tier 1 curriculum. So students aren't getting one set of explanations in their general education setting and then hearing completely different terminology during their intervention. We want to see consistency because we know students need more support and practice and feedback in order to make success. And so some of those resources include our partnership with the Connecticut Literacy Model called CTLM, and that's about 10 of our schools are partnering this year in cohort 1 to receive some support there with science of reading aligned practices. That includes foundations aligned materials that support intervention. We have Just Words, which is also a Wilson product, which is what Foundations is publisher of. And that is for grades 4 through 12 for foundational skills. We have Eureka, and then of course we have Second Step tier 2 intervention lessons that can be utilized in our schools. In middle school, we utilize a platform called Reading Plus, and we also have access to Just Words and Second Step as well. And then the math curriculum has its own reteaching resources. And then lastly, in our high schools, our Reading Foundations classes use STARI, which is a comprehensive intervention, and that just means that it attacks multiple areas of ELA need. We continue with Just Words because it goes up through grade 12 for students that have deeper foundational skills needs, transitions to algebra curriculum, and then our Edgenuity courses for credit recovery. So I'm going to turn it back over to Ms. Hoffman.
Thanks, Erin. So as Erin had mentioned on the chart that showed the tiered supports, once a student is found eligible for special education services, it's the responsibility of the PPT to determine the most appropriate way of programming in the least restrictive environment for the student. In Hartford Public Schools, our students receive services in the mainstream setting, which is often referred to as a push-in model, which is also the most inclusive. But also depending on the need of a student, we can move through the continuum of services. And more specifically, we have 4 in-district programs that we have designed for student need. For our elementary level, we have 12 transition learning resource rooms in our elementary schools. We have our RISE program, which is reaching individual success and excellence. We have about 71 students that are serviced through those programs. That is also elementary, middle, and high school. We have our iGoal programs. Independence is the goal. We serve about 163 students in the iGoal program, again, elementary, middle, and high school. And we have our STEP program, which is Students Transition Educational Pathways, which services about 26 students and is for our young adults 18 to 22 years old. We can go to the next slide, Ms. Santiago. Thank you. So this slide, as noted, we have the 4 in-district programs. This slide just shows a little bit more information about each program, the number of locations, the max capacity we have per site in those locations, and then vacancies that we currently have in those programs. And while the programs are distributed across the district, there are caps that are based on contractual agreements. And while there are still some vacancies in programs, we continue to interview and hire, which I'll also address in the next slide. Thank you. So while we still have vacancies that are present, we have worked very closely with our Office of Talent Management, as well as our building leaders over the summer and over the past few months as we continue to recruit, interview, and hire. More specifically, positions that we know have been a touch point for us over the last few years include speech and language clinicians, which we've been able to hire 4 of our own since the summer, which I will say, even though that sounds like a low number, that is definitely progress made in the right direction, as our speech and language clinicians are very difficult to find. We've also been able to hire 68 paraeducators and 18 special education teachers, and we're hopeful that we continue this trend so that all schools are fully staffed. We can go to the, okay. Thank you. So in addition to this, the day-to-day work in supporting students in implementing IEPs, the district continues to look forward for next steps and ways to enhance programming. So first, we know that the governor has outlined and shared a pilot grant for the 26-27 school year. I actually linked the legislation on the slide, but I wanted to also note, with the possibility of this grant, it's important to think about including our family and community voice so that engagement can be possible through a possible think tank to gain feedback and how we utilize that grant. Lastly, it is my hope that the district will continue the special education legislative task force in order to not only ensure everyone has an opportunity to engage in the ongoing conversations about special education programming for Hartford Public Schools, but also advocate for our students. The next slide is just questions, but what I added are just 2 additional slides. One includes just resources, as well as the last slide just has common terminology for the district. So I can take questions if there's any.
Thank you so much. And Member Tatum, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the overview. 2 questions, one specific to the hiring. When you indicated that some people were rehired, does that mean those are folks who left the district and are coming back to the district, or what is a rehire?
A rehire is a teacher that has recently retired, but is looking to come back on a partial basis. So they're
Okay.
at a reduced position.
Okay. And those positions that I imagine would be like a mix of providing direct services or maybe some other like support areas for special education, or?
It actually is a mix. We have some retired rehires in some of our programs. We have some in just supporting classrooms. And then we also have 2 that are actually utilized to support with testing across the district.
Cool. Thanks for that clarity.
You're welcome.
My next question, if I may, is that all right, Mr. Estelager?
Of course.
All right, thank you. It is a more sort of like bigger picture question about MTSS that is a question that I've had for years, so thanks for indulging me here. The system, as I understand it, in that pyramid structure, is designed on the assumption that most students, I think a percentage like 80% of students, are successful with Tier 1 instruction. They're able to access the grade level content and need no further intervention beyond the kind of differentiation that a teacher would do as part of their normal tier 1 instructional practice. And then I'm forgetting the exact percentages, but then, you know, some smaller percentage, 15% or something, require and are more successful with tier 2 level interventions, and then it's only, you know, 5 or 10% or something of students that require and benefit from tier 3 level instruction, or tier 3 level interventions. Part of my question is like, this is all sort of based on the assumption, and the system is designed to support a system that like looks like that, and where something like 80% of students are, to put it bluntly, I guess, like functioning on grade level, which we know is not the case, not only in Hartford, but in school districts all across the country, especially in recent years. And I guess I'm just curious, like, what is our sort of institutional response to that reality when, you know, like the pyramid doesn't seem to be shaped very much like a pyramid. If you look at what student needs actually are, it's more like a whatever a square structure is, or even an inverted pyramid sometimes, that it can feel like it's a smaller number of students, a minority of students who are able to access the grade level content sort of on the first go. What and then, like, given that reality, like the system of supports that are required to provide tier 2 level interventions to a much larger group of students, like that's just a lot of resources. And so I'm just curious, like, how does any of that strike you all? Like, what is the response there? Is anyone talking like that? I'm curious your reactions.
Sure. So we commonly refer to it as an upside down triangle. Your percentages are pretty right on in terms of the different tiers of support and where we would percentages wise like to see our students falling, and that is not our current reality. So we have really two separate but connected issues, which is how do we strengthen our tier 1 instruction and curricula to better meet the needs of our students so that we get closer to that 80%. And then connected to that is, and then how do we make sure that we also are not missing the opportunity to support students because of the fact that we have more students than what we would like to see percentage wise, not meeting those grade level expectations. So part of it is working really closely with teaching and learning to identify how do we provide those additional practice opportunities for students to receive the additional supports. When we think about like our overall scope and sequence of our curriculum and what we're asking for students to do and how that translates instructionally. So things like building in additional time in the instructional day on the elementary end of things to provide further practice opportunities related to some of the really core instructional areas that we want to see students grow in. The CTLM partnership, and I'm going to kind of live in elementary for a moment, is really going to help some of that as well, because that is really something that they're looking to target during our intervention time that we have dedicated in our schedule. How do we provide those additional supports, really aligned with what's happening in tier 1 in those grade level lessons, to make sure that any student that needs even more iterations of practice is receiving that practice opportunity with the teacher. And so then the other piece of it is, how does intervention exist then? And how do we identify students? And for that, we have to, it's definitely not as nice and clear cut as it would be if we had that 80% from the get-go meeting grade level expectations. And so we really then have to look at, where is the majority of our students falling? And then who are our outliers? And so we look at those outlier data points to determine who's in need of that additional instruction beyond where kind of the norm is falling, knowing we want to work on growing that percentage of students meeting grade level expectation, but also then saying, okay, but this group still isn't along with everybody else, even if everybody else is not meeting grade level expectation. And how do we provide supports for those students? And that really has been a pretty distinct challenge because it requires both time for the classroom teacher or content area teacher. When you get to middle school, high school is a little bit different of an animal. And so how do you provide the time and then additional personnel who are able to then provide even more supports? And some schools have been able to flex their school-based budgeting to allow for that, and other schools have not been able to. And so that has been things that we have been talking about staffing wise as we think about the budget coming up and everything, so that we can provide some of those supports to students. High school is a little different because we need to think about minimum proficiencies. And then if we can get students to a minimum proficiency, and so for math, that's really passing Algebra 1, because anything above Algebra 1 builds on Algebra 1. So we want, if foundationally they can get there, students can get there with success, then they might still not be passing all their classes or passing some classes, but then it's more of a question of credit recovery opportunities and how do we support students through that, or address other areas of need that they might have that are impacting their ability to pass that course. And for ELA, that's really getting to like, can I read? Can I leave 8th grade reading on grade level? Because if I can do that, then the texts that I'm being provided in high school, I should have all of the prerequisite skills to be able to read and basically understand what's happening so that I can engage in those deeper conversations around text and text analyzation and writing. And then again, if students are not successful, then we look at how do we provide that credit recovery opportunity or some other support that that student might need in order to address some of those other areas that are impacting their ability to be successful in class. I hope that answered your question.
Okay,
Yeah, I
board.
mean,
Okay,
I don't think my question necessarily had an answer, but you shared a lot of good perspective, and I think one part that I'm latching on to as making a lot of sense is what you shared at the end there about sort of like prioritizing almost like what are the like most essential skills that we're really going to focus on and leverage the resources that an MTSS system requires to really prioritize those skills. Because as I'm sure you experience every day, like the amount of need and desire to support is almost unending. And it's an interesting, thing to think about when we're thinking about like what resources are we allocating to educate our children and how are we doing that? I'm glad to hear that like thinking about this role in the budgeting cycle is coming up and just thinking more broadly too, like there are, spread across the city, spread across the state, different levels of need, and that if we're going to all be sort of held to an expectation of using a system like this, that looks different in different areas if we do believe in holding the same high expectations for all young people and that everyone is capable of learning. So it's kind of this advocacy game, I guess, of like if we do believe that all students can learn and be successful according to these standards of success and learning expectations, which I think do deserve always a kind of critical look to look at what they actually mean. But in the meantime, we sort of have to work with what we have. And yeah, just appreciating the challenge and I think as I said a minute ago, like resonate and think that it's valuable not to try to like take um the whole world of everything that a student is doing, but really like focusing on those core essential skills in light of the state of the need. So thank you for your work. I know that it's a lot of work goes into supporting these students and wanting the best for them. So I appreciate you all.
Thank you so much. And looks like we have Board Member Walker. Your hand is up. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I have 3 questions, so I'll try to be brief. So the first question is a kind of one and 1A. I want to know if you like track the outcomes of the PPTs with regard to cases where the request of the parent or the teacher is disagreed with by management. I think there was a parent who came to board meeting this past month who seemed to indicate that she didn't get outcomes out of the PPT that were requested. And I've heard that anecdotally from teachers. And so I want to know whether you track that, right? The outcomes of PPTs in regard of when management in essence disagrees versus when they agree. And the 1A I want to add to that, right, is also, do we have defined criteria for deciding the best learning environment for students? And I'm saying this as it relates to elementary school, where, again, anecdotally, I hear an example of students who are just nonverbal or students who are being assaultive to their classmates. There was, a crazy situation recently where a student painted the clothes of their classmates, right? And as I hear these examples, I am left feeling like the students in the classroom somehow are being deprived of the best education they could have from a very disruptive type of force in the classroom. And I'm feeling like that student who's persistently disruptive like that is also not learning in that broad classroom setting, but maybe would be better placed in a smaller classroom. And so I'm kind of wondering, in that 1A thing, is there criteria that kind of helps to decide when we figure a student could be mainstream versus a student should be in a more restrictive type of setting? And 2, as I went to the first question, then how does that reflect in the PPT outcomes?
Sure. So let me start with the question around criteria. So when a student has an IEP, quarterly we are marking progress notes for those goals and objectives. So we have data on a quarterly basis whether a student is making progress to those goals and objectives or not. In addition to that, they may have a related service, so there's data collected there. Another aspect is potentially around behavioral data. So some students have a behavior intervention plan, and so there's data collected there as well. All these data points are reviewed at a minimum at an annual review for every student. Every 3 years, we have a reevaluation process where, again, other additional evaluations are completed and those data points are also reviewed. I think you're maybe speaking about the day-to-day. So do we have criteria to determine whether a student needs a higher level of support or a more restrictive environment? In a sense, yes, because we're going to have all those data points for us. However, it's not a one-for-one. It's not going to be one situation determines, we discuss an out of district placement for a student. So there's a lot of data points, there's a lot of information collected to get to that point. And there's also a lot of programming that is in place and adjusted and reviewed in order to, if we're moving in that direction. So I think what we're also seeing in the district is a high number of students, particularly at the lower elementary levels, that are coming to us, this being their first school experience, and so they're not identified. And so in order to move in that direction of an IEP, like Erin noted, we're going to move through those tiers of intervention. We're going to collect data, and then we're going to move to a PPT if the school or if a guardian feels that's the most appropriate move to make. But it is really important that to note that we do have a high number of students coming to us with this being their first school experience, and also not identified. In terms of the question about tracking the outcomes of the PPT, we're not necessarily tracking the if there's a disagreement at the table. What we are tracking is if a parent decides to invoke their due process rights and move to a due process hearing, or if they file a state complaint, or if we go to mediation. So there's some mechanisms in place for parents to invoke rights, as well as the district to make some decisions as well. If we are saying we feel a student needs a higher level of support, or if a parent is as well. So we're tracking it there, but those recommendations, or those, we call it a refusal, are listed in the IEP in the recommendations.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that feedback. And I'm noting, based on your conversation, I think you brought up one of the factors that I wanted to lift up, which is, I think for those students who are just coming into the elementary ages, kindergarten and first grade, now I could get
Mr. Walker, I believe you're frozen if you can hear
what
us.
it feels like if
Oh.
if a question for an extended period of time. What's that?
You were
Am I
frozen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do I sound better now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, because I am in a point where occasionally I get a dead zone in my house on occasion. What I was saying that based on your feedback, I can see where if you're saying a student who's new to the educational process has to go through MTSS before they hit the special ed IEP kind of threshold, it sounds like there's a circumstance where students could persist in a classroom for an extended period of time before we finally decide that this student is indeed special needs in some kind of way, from what you're saying. The other thing that I'm hearing based on what your feedback is, there isn't a mechanism for teachers who make a recommendation and there's a disagreement. I don't know if they have the same kind of mechanisms that parents have. So there may be a gap in that when there's disagreements in that way, it's not easily trackable. For parents, I totally get it. So, but thank you for that. That was helpful to understand that. Then the other thing I wanted to ask was well, twofold. You brought up one. I'll just try to combine this one too. You brought up the seed, and so I know right now we have this out of district placement, which is incredibly expensive, which you just brought up, and so in your presentation. I'm thinking seed is that grant or supposed money that's going to help us to build our own internal capacity so we can do more of this internal. And so I had maybe a question about how that may help us in this area, because right now it feels like the solution that for me seems to be building our own internal capacity so we can place our students who need help without breaking the bank. And so if you want to comment on maybe that, I'll let you comment on that. and then I'll throw my last question out there so you can comment on both of those. The idea of, you know, building internal capacity so that we can place students without the high cost. The other one is I read a second article within the last month about these third-party companies providing special ed services for our students, you know, in Connecticut and Hartford included, where they don't seem to have adequate compliance with certified staff or other requirements that the state, you know, state board of education has dictated they should have. And I know last year we got that report on High Road School where a number of our students were placed, and so I'm asking, is it possible, or the district? Can I ask, is the district planning to do some type of audit or some type of look at ourselves like the High Road schools or these other schools when these complaints are listed? I know historically the State Department of Education was the only group that actually did like direct audits and direct investigations, but it seemed like from what I'm reading, the local district has at least the opportunity to, if we want to take it on. So is that something we've thought about doing, where we could go ourselves to look at how our students are faring in these circumstances? I'm particularly concerned about folks not being certified, students not getting the services that were promised, and reports of students getting maybe excess restraint or isolation. What do you feel about those two things? You get it. I'll let you comment on both of those comments. I'll just end there.
Okay. Let me start with the SEED pilot funding. Yes, and I hope over time it's been clear that what we want to be able to do is keep our students in district rather than sending them out. We do know that it's incredibly important for them to stay connected to their community, and oftentimes there's a variety of barriers to get students into out of district programs. There's a wait list, there's distance, there's other factors that we just want to be able to avoid, and with that sometimes we can't avoid it. But yes, this SEED pilot funding is an opportunity for us to either enhance or build out our existing programs, or look to build something new that would meet the needs of our students to keep them in district rather than relying on other entities. But with that, your note about our out of district programs is interesting in the sense that there is an out of district team of 8 specialists that carry a caseload for those programs. And what I can say is that over time, we have been intentional about ensuring that we are in those programs, like in person for PPTs, that we visit on a regular basis and observe and just visit our students, even if there's not a PPT that's scheduled. It is really important that we see programming happening just outside of a PPT. With that said, we are also, well, with the state does observe, but again, we have gone in and just made sure that we do that on our own. In terms of the certified staff or number of restraints and seclusions, those are all data points that the programs report to us. So anytime they are either have a vacancy, or if they've lost a staff member, or if there's some gap in programming, they will update us so that we are aware that our students may not have access to a teacher or related service staff. In addition to just your note about restraint and seclusion, that is an update to us as well, so we are aware of that. There is a mandate that if a student has 4 restraints or seclusions within 20 days, we go back to PPT. So there is a mechanism there to keep track and to monitor what's actually happening in those programs.
Yeah, thank you. That's good feedback. So you're saying you have the equivalent of like an out of district coordinator for SPED. So when kids go out of district, there's a coordinator that keeps track of them. So if that's the case, would you I guess report out to us then some summary on some basis as to how that's going, who's, you know, in some ways, who's doing well, where there's issues. At least if you're getting that data, it'd be nice to see it, because right now I just, you know, occasionally hear the disturbing story and don't have anything to say about how our kids are doing in these programs. Maybe our kids are doing well because someone has checked and seen, but I didn't know that. So it'd be nice to have that kind of summary of the checks, and what you just suggested and what you just said would be nice data to have, at least as a good starting point on those out of district placement of third party folks.
Okay. Yep, we can do that.
Thank you so much. One thing I do want to say is that while the seed pilot funding provides a valuable opportunity, you know, to innovate and expand our programs, it's important that our focus remains on quality and impact rather than cost and savings, you know, cost savings alone. You know, the goal, you know, should be to create enriching environments, supportive environments, you know, yes, so that we do keep our children, but not just to create models for the sake of keeping our children in district, or you know, for the sake of keeping them here and not sending them out. I just want to make sure that, you know, the children are receiving, you know, the care, the standards, and the learning that they deserve. So we're not just looking at, okay, we can save money here by keeping them here, but the flip side of that would be they're not getting what they need. Ultimately, we want all children to get what they need in a safe environment. I just had to, you know, make sure that we all agree on that. And having said that, I believe that are we done with the presentation? Awesome. And thank you so much once again for the update. And our meeting is adjourned. It's not 6:30 yet, so that's